Now that we are in January, quite a lot of us growers are going to be getting really itchy fingers, just really wanting to sow some seeds. And there are actually a few that you can be sowing at this time of year, and equally there's a few that actually you really shouldn't be. Now, I have actually delayed sowing some of my broad beans and my sweet peas. Back in 2022, I probably sowed these end of October and November time, which is really what the seed packets tell you to do. But just because they tell you to do it doesn't mean that you should. What I found back then is we had such a mild autumn and mild winter that actually I had a lot of growth on all of my plants, and then we had some really heavy sustained frost, and actually it wiped them out. It even wiped out the broad beans, which is quite unusual. So what I've done this year is I've actually held off until January, and I'm going to sow them now. So I have my broad beans, I have some beautiful sweet peas, and I have my onion seeds as well. Now, depending on what you're actually going to grow in an unheated greenhouse, we've got to think about the light levels. These will be fine in here. I also need to think about the seed cells that I'm going to be growing in. And what I have here is I have these ones, which are the same ones that I actually grew my garlic in, and they're quite deep and they're quite wide, and these are actually going to be for my broad beans. And that's because broad beans do this amazing things as they germinate, and the same thing happens actually with runner beans as well. They're quite big, and as they germinate they start to twist and turn in their cells in order to start growing. Now, you can actually plant them outside at this time of year, but again, lots of rain, lots of flooding going on, and I'm not going to chance it, so they are going to go in cells. Now, my sweet peas are actually going to go in these cells. Now, again, there's a lot of them, which is fine because I've got a lot of sweet peas, and these are quite deep. And again, it is plastic, but it has been used quite a number of years, washed. Don't worry about scrubbing it too hard, and then actually used again. You can of course grow your sweet peas in toilet roll tubes, but I have a lot and I haven't got that many toilet roll tubes, to be honest. And then finally, I'm going to actually use this seed cell for my onions. I have already got onion sets in the ground, but I'm going to do some from onion seeds as well, and these don't need to be particularly deep, and I'm probably about 1 centimetre wide, 1 centimetre deep, and I probably put about 3 seeds in each of these cells. And again, in an unheated greenhouse at this time of year with a propagator lid over the top, they should actually grow really well. So now that I have finished doing all of my seed sowing in my unheated greenhouse, I now need to go and do some more seed sowing, but in a different area and using something which I technically don't really like using. So here we are in an environment which is much warmer for both us as well as our seedlings. And what I have here are my grow lights and a heated propagator. Now, I don't quite often like to use grow lights because I really think that seeds need to be sown at the right time of year. However, here in the UK in Zone 8, there's a few things that we do really need to be sowing in January if we want to get a good harvest later on in the year. And that is our aubergines and our peppers, or our chili peppers. Now, there's not enough natural light outside or heat really for these to be doing well in an unheated greenhouse, and that's why we need the grow lights. You don't necessarily need a heated propagator. I just like to use one because it helps with the warmth. However, if you have radiators near to where you can have your propagators, there's no need for this. Grow lights, unfortunately, at this time of year are going to be an absolute must. So all I'm going to do is, in these small seed trays, which is very similar to what we'd normally do, I'm just going to sow my seeds and then put the propagator lid on the top, making sure that it's sealed. Once that is done, we start to get the grow lights on. And there we go. Now, with our grow lights, we have different colours. We have the reds, we have the blues, and we have the whites. And each of these colours actually do slightly different things. The blue helps with the chlorophyll, and that is what helps with the photosynthesis in our plants. The red is for the stems, to help the stems and the leaves to actually develop nice and strong. And then the white is trying to replicate the rest of the light in the colour spectrum, which we have sort of in natural daylight. Now, each of these lights is really needed at different points, but we can actually have them all on at the same time and it's all ready. Once you've actually got all your seeds sown, move your lights quite close, not quite touching the propagator lids, but quite close to them, so that as soon as those seedlings appear, and I would do this before they actually start to appear, as soon as they do, they're going to be getting that light, because sometimes seedlings will trick you and suddenly appear before you know it. Now, what will happen if you don't have these grow lights at this time of year is the seedlings will get leggy, because they will be trying to look for some light. Now, if it's things like maybe your tomato seeds, if you're really eager to get those going, personally I wouldn't, but it is down to your own preference. What you will find is they will go very, very leggy, but they can to a certain extent be saved by actually digging them in deeper, because the little hairs will actually throw out new roots. However, you also need to think about sort of 5 or 6 weeks time when they need potting on. Do you have enough space inside your warm environment? Do you have enough lights to actually make sure that they continue growing? Because it's not just about getting those seedlings going, but it's also sustaining them as they go through. So I'm going to get on with more of these. Keep an eye on them, keep them watered, maybe raise those lights up as they start to grow, and I should have some beautiful, beautiful harvests and plants for this year.